Hey, 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 beautiful beings. Welcome in and welcome to today's guest. So today we have Scarlet Ravin with us. Welcome, Scarlet.
Hi.
So Scarlet is a seer, a multidimensional channel, plant spirit guide, best-selling author and alchemist, a starseed here to shape light into the new world. You've written 2 best-selling books and launched a very successful herbal alchemy company called White Fox and Medicine. So you're the author of a book which I absolutely loved called Psilocybin Transmissions. And I love the way the universe connects us, because I had shared something in my Facebook group about psilocybin mushrooms, and then you had been on the Sense of Soul podcast with Shana, and they basically were like, oh my god, Lindsay, you need to speak to Scarlet. And I was like, okay, then I will. So Scarlet, do you want to tell us where your journey with psilocybin and mushrooms started?
It started as a 13-year-old kid kind of messing around and not really knowing the consciousness power inside of what I was doing, but enjoying the laughter and the creativity it brought. Me and my friends would eat an eighth each and just walk around the neighborhood from like midnight to 5 a.m. and lay on the grass and laugh. And my first impressions of it was this really warm cocoon that we could slip into that would encourage a joyous, laughter-filled perspective that we would get to enjoy together. And that's kind of how I related to it. It wasn't until later when I started realizing my own magic and the magic of consciousness that I made the connection of how symbiotic it really is to expanding one's light.
So did you have a period where you stopped taking the mushrooms or working with the mushrooms, and then did they come back in later on in life for you?
Yeah. So because I started using substances so young, I had a lot of unresolved trauma and I didn't have any of the medicine to be able to process it. So I turned to substances to numb out from feeling my trauma the situations I was in. I continued that pattern until I had an overdose in my early 20s. And when I had the overdose, I realized I need to make a choice. Either I wholeheartedly focus on finding the true meaning of happiness here on this planet, or I'm going to kill myself because I'm so bloody unhappy.
Yeah.
So there has to be a way, and so as soon as I made that commitment, my whole life changed and I got sober, but strictly sober, didn't touch anything for about 7 years. And throughout that period, I was traveling and going and doing workshops at different retreat centers. I did a work trade situation at Esalen and Big Sur. I served at a raw food detox center in Ithaca, and then I traveled to other countries as well. And so for 7 years, it looked like I was just this gypsy traveler, kind of walking through my initiations of remembrance, meeting with these different light teachers. And then I got to this place where it felt like my sobriety was on an extreme imbalance, and my openness to the magic of plant medicine, it wasn't fluid. It was like this strict box that I had put myself in of sobriety. So I started playing with cannabis and psilocybin again from the perspective of a ceremony and setting a sacred intention and having it be this relationship of light. Like I'm going to an altar and I'm going to commune with this plant spirit. And I entered back into plant medicine with that lens, which has really served me in having this incredible dance with this medicine.
So in terms of like overcoming the sobriety, if you like, and the substance, I'm sure like there'll be a lot of people who are watching this who that resonates with, in terms of not being able to feel their feelings and numbing it out in some way, whether it's through alcohol or other substances. So like at what point did you start to feel your feelings again?
The first workshop I did, I actually I got addicted to opiates. That's what I had overdosed on. And so I I had the overdose, and then there's this 10-day period, and my parents were helping me, and they were like, what are we going to do? Are you going to rehab? Like, what are you going to do? And I was like, rehab's a joke. And no, I was like, that's not my problem. My problem is something inside of my body, like my heart. And I knew that. And so my mom was like, well, your dad went to Esalen 20 years ago and it totally changed his life. Why don't you see if they have a workshop? So I went online and they had a workshop that the following week. So I had like 10 days before it started, called How Our Wounds Can Lead to Healing. And I was like, perfect. And I was still using at that point, but I brought enough to kind of get me on the plane, but not enough to spend the week on the opiates.
Yeah.
And I detoxed during the workshop. It was really uncomfortable. And the workshop guide, I never participated. I witnessed, it was a Gestalt ceremony or workshop where the leader would take us through our most painful scenarios and allow these other people to witness it. And we would act things out, but we would move the emotion out of our body and we'd face it. And so it was the last day and he came up to me and he was like, are you in there? Are you going to participate? And I was like, yes, like after lunch. There's 3 sessions a day where you meet for like 6 hours a day. So it was after lunch and I went in there and I had gone through some really intense like abuse from a partner when I was 17. And I had never told anybody about it. I just stuffed it down. I was like, it was mental, emotional, and physical torture type stuff that at that age, I just couldn't comprehend that it was even happening to me, let alone process what it would take to face that it happened to me. So somehow just sharing, and I didn't even go into the details, but just sharing that that had happened to me took this entire energetic blanket of repression that I had been living under off of my system. And I left that workshop and I was like, I don't want to touch drugs anymore. I'm cured. I want to do more of what this was. Like whatever this is what I needed. I didn't need the blanket. I need this. So I actually packed up. I went online. I applied for a work scholarship at Esalen. I got in for the following month. So I went home. I packed up my entire apartment. Whatever didn't fit in my car, I sold. And I drove to Big Sur 25 days later and stayed for a year. And then that was just the start.
Wow. That sounds like quite an awesome journey you've had, Scarlet.
Yeah, it's been colorful.
Yeah. So in terms of the books that you've written, so the psilocybin transmissions to me really spoke to me. So after I heard you on this podcast, so my journey is like, I've only recently sort of got into plant medicine sort of earlier this year, and finding women in this space, I was sort of like, there was a lot of men doing Zoom calls and holding webinars, etc. But I found sort of like yourself, and then I ordered some books, and the first 2 books that actually arrived were Psychedelic Mysteries of the Feminine and Consciousness Medicine as well. I was like, yay, I found some women. So do you want to just talk us through the psilocybin transmissions book as well and how that came about?
Yeah, that was a really special experience. I was living in Northern California and I had taken my cannabis company legal, and I went through this whole thing. And so I was doing this whole business upgrade that I wasn't feeling very happy about. And then I was in this relationship that had a lot of uncohesion to it. And it felt like I was at a crossroads in my life. And I rarely do it anymore where I'll take a full gram or a gram and a half and do a deep dive journey, because I feel like I'm so just accessing constant downloads that I'm not so much called to those more, fierce inputs. So I ate a gram and a half and it was mixed with my chocolate alchemy, and I had an intention of opening my heart and receiving clear knowing of what my next step was, because I just wanted to get rid of the company and not be a part of the huge upgrade. I was like, no, I want artisan, I want small, I don't want business meetings. I know that that's where the money is, but it doesn't feel good. So what do I do? Like, which direction am I supposed to go in here? And it was like, for the first time, the entity that I now relate to the spirit of psilocybin, or the collective souls that speak through this, the spirit of psilocybin, it was very clear the impressions that I was given was that this is an intergalactic light protocol. It's a light grid, and it's come through in the shape of a mushroom with mycelium across the earth. But when we tap into this light grid, we tap into that dimension where it lives, and we are, you know, we're resonating our vibration with this very sacred high vibrational frequency that can blast through the traumas that a lot of us have experienced without the understanding that we were creating that experience. Like, a lot of us can really navigate so much better outside of the world of trauma now, but we didn't have that information. And a lot of that information is still a part of us. So for me, I see this as like the rocket ship fuel to getting through a lot of that density so that we can just experience the 5D. You know, it doesn't have to be a struggle. Ascension does not have to be a struggle. We can have fun with it. And to me, this is one of those ways of having fun with it. So I was introduced to this collective of souls that I was like, this is the spirit of psilocybin. And when they first kind of came into my aura and they were sharing visions, it was visions of me starting this new journey with them, which came in the like thought form of a new business, a trademark, write a book, create a product line. So
Not
here I am. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I'm totally spent and burnt out on my current project that I'm seeking guidance from. And here you're coming saying like, no, just start this whole other one. And I'm like, I'm barely doing the one I have.
Yeah.
So my energy was obviously resonating in a sense of depletion. And when this came, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I can do all of those things very well. I'm very gifted at branding. I'm very gifted at packaging, and I'm an alchemy, you know, that's my thing. So I was like, I can do this. And I've written a book. Everything they were asking, I was like, I get why you're asking.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
There is alignment here. I was like, I hear you.
Yeah.
And then they were saying, and trademark the word. You're going to be able to do spiritual education. We will channel through you, and we will spread the word of light that we came here to spread. And of course, human mind, 3D mind, I'm never going to trademark the word psilocybin. But I thought in that same thought thread, if it happens, I've proved the vision. And so when I call, not that I'm in an energy of I have to prove the vision, but it's nice once in a while when there's such a big ask that I'm not just so naturally inclined to get external confirmation again. So I called my lawyer and told him what happened, and he's known me for so long. I tell him what really happened, and he's like, okay, like, you're crazy and I love you and let's do it. And I have to legally advise you, because I have to say this to you. You're about to give me money that I do not think this is a good idea. You're going after the word. No one's going to give you the word. I think you should change the spelling to like SILLY, Cybin or something. And I was like, no, the word is an energetic imprint. If the word doesn't come through, I don't want it. It's not about getting the trademark for that. It's about getting that imprint. So he went for it. And then in the meantime, I did my marketing and my branding around the chocolates, and I did all my alchemy around that to get that ready. And as soon as he called and said we got the trademark, it was like that group of souls were knocking at my third eye, and they were like, channel the book and channel the book. I was like, all right, here we go. I made a condition upon the vision to unfold. And I said, if that comes through and this is all going to happen, I will do everything you want.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, it was interesting because when I was listening to the podcast and you were talking about trademarking the word psilocybin, and like you said, my 3D mind's gone, why are you trademarking the word psilocybin? And then when I read the book and like the story you've just shared, I was like, it makes sense, because by getting that word trademarked, you can then put it, like you say in your book, you can get it into like supermarkets and grocery stores, and people then start getting used to what that word is. And I was like, it's genius.
It's totally genius. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there can be a product on the shelf called psilocybin because it's a registered, supplemental registered brand. It doesn't mean that takes the substance of having to be inside of it. So it's an open door for communication. It's still ahead of its time. It's interesting. There hasn't been, and obviously we went into this really changing, potent 2 years of 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
But I feel like in a year or two is when they're gonna, I am doing like, I exchange psilocybin products that have psilocybin in them between me and my clients. And then the line that is just going to be chocolate and herbs that people can buy online through like an e-store and then add their own psilocybin to it when they get home. That has the brand name psilocybin on it. And that's the one that has yet to fully launch into market. It's ready when the market says it's ready, but I've just been kind of witnessing it energetically. So what I have been doing is really talking about the book with people like you and talking about the microdoses that I make and talking about the full journey bars that I make. And then I create these little like meetings and we all get together and I explain it and I share the medicine with people so that they can start feeling what you know already and feeling what I felt of this grid of light that's totally intergalactic that we start to resonate with when we honor that trip.
And I think you're right in terms of sort of like the market being ready. So what I'm starting to say is, and I have this tendency to like share my experiences and I'm like, you know, I have to share what I go through. And by just sharing and talking about it, you know, it allows other people to then open up and talk and either share their experience as well, or to start to ask questions or to start to look into it and research. So I think seeing that there's more people that are openly talking about it and, you know, the decriminalization over there, or they're starting to decriminalize it, aren't they, in various US states, it feels like the beginning of a big change that is coming. And we're sort of sat here experiencing it and being ready for it when that does happen.
Yeah, I remember it's really akin to the feelings I went through from going from my cannabis alchemy that I was doing and then taking that into the light of the legal industry portion. It was the same feeling of like, we're putting ourselves out there now. We're putting, and this was, I mean, to think this is like 7 years ago, I guess, but I did my first cannabis photo shoot with people smoking cannabis and, you know, in that atmosphere. And then I put it on social media and I remember the comments I was getting, they were like, oh my God, you're so brave and you're totally outing yourself and you're doing branding on your alchemy. And it's like, yeah, like the laws haven't been written yet. We have Prop 215. I am in my right to do this, you know, but it was that big first step of starting to normalize something that never should have not been normal. And the whole psilocybin thing feels the same way. I did my first psilocybin photo shoot with the microdoses and the chocolates. And I was just like, this is it. This is that feeling of like, now we're starting to walk into the light with this medicine as a collective. So that we can show the people like, you guys have been artificially implanted with fear around something that's a God-given right. And that's okay. And we're here to remind you that this is playful and fun. Sorry someone told you to fear it.
And it's that fear, if you think like when, like back in from the 1960s, that fear's been around for such a long time, you know, that it's going to take a while for us to sort of like, or for some people to sort of like unravel from that and to start, and it's around changing the language, isn't it, around it, so it's plant medicine and not a drug or a class A drug, you know. And but that's what it is, isn't it? It's us sort of like sharing experiences, sharing stories, sharing knowledge that's going to sort of like have that effect on others and on future generations as well, hopefully. So yeah, so in terms of I was just going to read, there was a bit in your book as well which I really loved, and I think this was something that had come through the mushrooms as well. And it said, everything is love and everything is a medicine. Everything is here to help me evolve and everything is here to teach me. I surrender to the greyness of the universe before me and I melt into her teachings. I just wanted to read that because I love that. And there was something else I was going to ask, was in terms of, the gender. So you call mushrooms she, and after, when I was reading that, I was like, are mushrooms she, or are they male or female? So what's your feeling around the mushrooms as a gender?
That quote that you read, it reminded me a lot of the book. When I was channeling it, I was like crying, like ugly crying, like, oh, this is so beautiful, like, oh my God. And just being amazed at how simple knowledge, like when you read it, and then not just read it, but you feel the embodiment of the words. It's really that simple moment in time. If you just put those together collectively and focus on that, you're living in heaven on earth. You're in the space that we're all striving to live in. So yeah, I just love the simplicity of the words that they shared. It was so easy to sink into. In terms of the gender, for me, that's a projection of me relating to the energy that I felt. So when I look at the interaction between the souls of psilocybin, and I energetically look at their impressions with relating to other beings on the planet, it's really whatever the being wants to relate to them as. They're on a vibrational level of source. So to me, that's not going to be divided between any masculine or feminine energies. It's going to be the one molecular seed that contains absolutely everything in the universe. So we're communicating with that seed of consciousness that started everything when we communicate with the spirit of psilocybin. I like to use she because for me, it will allow me to kind of envelop myself in a soft essence of compassion and be in a more state of receptivity. And that's probably just me and my relationship to the masculine and feminine coming through.
Yeah, because I'd done an interview with a couple of ladies around cacao, and I kept calling cacao it, and I was corrected, and it was like, it's she, Lindsay, and I was like, I didn't realize, and that's about the education, isn't it? And then ayahuasca is related, that's often called a she as well. So I was I was pondering that. I was like, I wonder if mushrooms are a male or a female energy, or if there's one that's more than the other. But maybe it's like you said, maybe it just depends on people's own experience and what they feel at that time as well. So in terms of like when you've worked with psilocybin as well, have you ever had like a challenging experience with psilocybin?
Yeah.
How did that
very
feel?
challenging. And this was back in like high school and not really knowing what I was doing. I've had experiences where I would eat a quarter, and now looking back thinking that I would eat that much, and I was at home and I was with a girlfriend. It wasn't like we our safety was at risk or anything, but I remember losing the use of my legs for like 4 hours and feeling like I couldn't walk and being just totally frozen and immobile, and having this experience of just no abilities inside of my system. So different things like that are just kind of out of the ordinary that I couldn't even imagine experiencing now, dancing with like these types of medicines. I've had journeys on Aya that are pretty debilitating, but psilocybin is like a very gentle, loving soul massage. That's how I relate to her now. Maybe that is a result of my previous initiations with her. I don't know, but that was probably the most challenging time I've had on it.
So in terms of ayahuasca for yourself, like how do you feel that ayahuasca does differ then to the psilocybin?
Ayahuasca, I really respect her, and I have ceremonies with her sometimes in meditation. I don't feel like it's necessary to ingest that potent of a medicine for me. When I've had actual ceremonies where I ingest her and go on journeys, It shows, like, for her, to me, she's the portal where you get to look at the light of source in the face, and you get to be staring at the light of source for the duration of your journey while you go through an array of physical, mental, and emotional experiences. But it's all held in this knowing that you're completely being facilitated through by source. So it's this very spiritual experience.
Mm.
But it, for me, it's also it's intense, and there's a level of impact that it has on all of my systems that'll reverb for like 3 to 4 weeks post ceremony.
Mm.
And in that time where I'm reconfiguring myself, um it just almost feels like my everyday spiritual practice, my meditations, my trance states, what I do to connect to the unseen world. I feel like I'm in that state that I get to when I'm in an ayahuasca ceremony 90% of the time.
Mm.
So to go through this very jarring, kind of shaken up experience that I have to recalibrate back from, I guess it feels unnecessary to me at this point. So what I started doing was having meditations with her and talking to her about her downloads, asking her questions that I had and wanted insight to.
Mm.
And now I relate to her on that level. And that's a similar, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that.
No.
I was like, what is that? Anyway, yeah. So psilocybin then, in comparison, is this gentle everyday reminder that I can hold hands with and walk down the street with. And I feel like my innate light is enhanced. So I kind of, you know how you can call on Archangel Michael and be like, Archangel Michael, I'm going through some shit. Like, help me connect to my higher self. Help me clear this. Help me get back to a zero heart-centered place. Help me right now. To me, calling on that psilocybin relationship, it's same kind of angelic likeness, but in plant medicine form. So my preferred is microdosing all the time. There's times where my body says, no, not right now, and I'll take a month off. But I love microdosing, and what I feel like is my relationship to psilocybin, it's this sweet friend that I have that lives in this intergalactic light grid, and she walks alongside me with this vibration of remembrance that I get to be close to while the world is going through one of the most contrasting great awakenings it has ever seen. Like, I want to have fun. I don't want every day to be me. I have to bear this alone. It's like, no, man, there's tools. Like, you have to bear this alone. Why are you praying to the archangels, but you won't tap into plant medicine? There's no difference. They're different forms of light helpers. So what I noticed specifically for 2020 and 2021, I mean, what psilocybin is telling me and everyone that's watching this, I highly suggest you go into your own meditative trance state and you talk to the spirit of psilocybin directly and ask her or him or however you relate to the spirit of psilocybin questions in regards to what I'm saying. But working with her light grid right now, while the earth is going through this major shift from 3D into the vibrational resonance of 5D, she's helping us make this transition so we can have fun during the ascension and not take it all so seriously and get bogged down by the fierce trying of focus and the correcting of this and that, just to let fucking go and have a good time once in a while, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's like, I found, so like the weekend, when I was taking some mushrooms, and just the giggles, like, and just that real laughter, where you're crying with laughter. And it's like, this is what life's about. It's about remembering that joy. And like you said, it's about not taking life seriously. And, there is stuff going on, and we know it's going on and we're aware of it. But it's like, we're still having to like work on ourselves and raising our vibration. And like I said, we're going through this ascension, but we don't have to do it, like you said, by ourselves, that there are these tools out there. And it's interesting as well. I found like there are so many people that I'm now speaking to who are also like, I feel really drawn to plant medicine right now. And they've never noticed it before, but it's like things keep popping up for them, and I don't know if you found this, but like I will see mushrooms everywhere now. It's like if I'm in the woods or in the forest, my eyes are just drawn to where there's a mushroom.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yes. And you know what's super trippy is that when like the Holocaust was going on and they were having that whole world shaking event, fungus, a scientist discovered a fungus in a laboratory, and it was penicillin, and it totally changed healthcare at that time. And it brought about a lot of peace in a time when the world was really struggling. And so when I go into this, I have these like microdose capsulating ceremonies where we get all the powder ready. And then I have crystals that I charged in the moonlight. We drop crystals in the powder and then we let it sit overnight. So like there's this vibrational resonance. And then the next day we hand capsule everything. So whoever's touching the capsule is intentionally doing heart prayers while they're doing it. And so I was sitting and I was kind of, whenever I go into these ceremonies, I just automatically go into a trance state and I start talking to beings and kind of having visions, and I just let myself play in that realm. And that's where they told me about the penicillin, and they were like, penicillin is from a fungus. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, penicillin is from a fungus and it started during the Holocaust. And I was like, what? And they're like, what the earth is going through vibrationally right now is very similar to the removal of rights that human body experienced during that period of time. And I was like, okay. And so this whole, pandemic thing of this and removing people's rights with this excuse that if you catch a cold, you could catch a cold. Oh no. Yeah. They're taking, if you believe in health and you believe in yourself and you're a sovereign, loving light being, they're taking your freedom away. If you are a compliant, obedient little whatever, you're freely giving your rights away.
Yeah.
But there are two energetic movements going on right now. And so when I was doing these capsules, they were like, you are serving the same fungus medicinal expression that served that era. You are a part of serving the same medicinal light expression in this era. And they were showing me this, like these waves of how this mycelium and this fungus resonance of light has woven through these very serious moments in time where the energy gets so contrasting, like it is for the awakened ones right now, and serve up a light remembrance. Because if you look at the big picture from Source's eyes, it's like, for those of us that are awake and don't want to wear a mask and we want to breathe fresh air and we don't want to get covered in cancer-causing hand sanitizer and we want to believe in our immune system and we don't want to be attacked for standing in that sovereign freedom, we're getting attacked. We're getting harassed. We can't fly and breathe fresh air. Like, our rights have been taken away. The people that are compliant, they might be okay with this right now, but as they wake up, they'll see that living on this earth with all of your rights being taken away with no valid purpose other than greedy people are trying to remove them. Then you get into, wow, that's intense, man. Fuck, Archangel Michael, like Mother Mary, let me have compassion, because all these compliant little bitches or whatever, which is the energy that moves through me, which is so intense. They're the ones helping everyone else take our rights away. So the contrast then grows. And what I've been doing consciously with psilocybin, and it's totally working and serving me in the light, is it's helped me come into this place of compassion for all beings. It's helped me come into this place of understanding that the hologram of the person harassing me for not wearing a mask, I'm actually creating that person. I'm Source, and that's another version of Source. We're actually not separate. So anything I think about that person, I'm thinking about myself. And I've trained myself to come back to that understanding of remembrance of, like, the division, it came out with a force and it rocked a lot of us. But what has brought me back to this sense of balance and true, honest compassion in my heart and love. I was even confronted today and I didn't even get mad. I was like, I'm going to share what my personal freedom vision looks like with you. And then I'm going to walk around you. And if you want me to leave, you're going to have to call the police. Have a good day. And I'm totally like, I feel genuine love for them now. I did not feel that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Psilocybin microdosing definitely brought me back to this place of like, yeah, the contrast is intense and we're all waking up at our own time period, but everyone else is still you. Everyone else is still you. And it's fucking intense.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. I know it's interesting. I channeled something. It must have been a few months ago now, and it was like thanking people who were choosing to wear masks and who were choosing to do whatever else, because I was like, without you guys choosing that, then we wouldn't be sort of finding each other, you know, and meeting others who are of similar minds. So it was very much around gratitude and having gratitude for everyone on this planet for their decisions and their choices on what they're doing at this time. So if someone's watching this and they're wanting to sort of like take that first step into psilocybin or into microdosing, like what would you recommend that they do first?
I would say have a meditation on it. Sit with yourself, write down why you're feeling drawn to interacting with psilocybin, get clear on the intention that you want to receive from the relationship. And then as soon as you're really clear on that relationship intention, go into a meditation and connect with your inner being, your higher self, and see how it resonates and sit with it. And if you start to get an intuitive yes, then ask, okay, then what's my first step? Is it a microdose? Is it a full journey? Should I connect with someone else? You know, or is it, should I read a book? Or I think that it's so unique to everybody. And my suggestion now is everyone just slow down, ask yourself the questions, take the time to meditate on it, allow your body and your mind and your soul to speak to you and show you where you're meant to go, because you're the only one that truly knows.
Yeah, that's good advice. I know when I came into it, basically it was a friend of mine was like, oh, this is something that I'm planning on doing. Do you want in? And I was just like, yeah. And I knew, do you know what I mean? As soon as like he started talking about it, I was like, I know that this for me is the next stage of my evolution. And it feels completely natural. There's no fear, there's no worry. It was just like, yeah, I want to try it.
Yeah.
And that was it. And like, I'm so pleased, you know, that was sort of like that I listened to myself and made that decision to do that. But I do feel like if you maybe not used to listening to your intuition, or you don't necessarily trust yourself, I think that's really good advice to definitely meditate and not see it either. And I don't know how you feel about this, but is like there's like one tool that's going to fix everything.
Yeah, I actually like I feel like I've lost a few clients by being honest about that, because the microdose capsules are brilliant, and if you are doing your own personal work, it will enhance the personal work that you're doing, and it'll make it feel like it's seamless and that you're just gliding through it. And that what that means is like no more anxiety, no more depression. Like you're really connected to the eyes of source, and you're really connected with the rhythm of nature in a way that it's just so cohesive to flow through synchronicity. And sharing that on my videos and stuff on YouTube, I think people perceived it as, oh, I'll take this and I won't have anxiety or depression. And it's like I don't really say must often, but you must do your own work. This is going to amplify what you're doing. And one of the people that messaged me back said, you know, my anger is really increasing and my neighbor keeps playing this music I don't like, and my job and I'm like, all you're sharing with me is your primary focus, which is the negative side of every single situation. And if your primary focus is on the negative side of every situation, you're a God creator being. That's you're creating that experience. Because you can look at my neighbors playing such loud music and no one can stop it as I might have an opportunity to really be motivated to move. And what is my next chapter? Oh my God, what is my next chapter? And you focus on what that energy gave you. It was a desire for something else. And it's your job to focus on what the other desire is, not what caused the desire, you know? And that mind focus, that's what the psilocybin is really going to help you do, the microdosing. It's going to help you stay focused on your desire and the light that you're moving towards, instead of getting mentally wrapped up in the repetitive chatter of what you don't want. You still have to flex that muscle.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're getting a massage while you're working out. And so things are just more fluid, but you still got to do the flexing.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's a massive, like a really good piece of advice as well, you know, in terms of it's not something to be taken by itself, that there are other tools that will work alongside it, that will support you. And like you said, if you are feeling anger and that hasn't been dealt with, or you haven't recognized it as your shadow side or anything like that, then it is going to start coming more to the surface for you to be aware of and to accept, isn't it?
Yeah, the density shall rise. And we shall all be grateful for it, rising up and out.
Definitely. So for yourself then, Scarlett, what does the next few months look like for you?
Who the fuck knows? I have no idea. This world is insane right now. My life is changing what feels like every day. But I just found I found a rental. I signed a year lease. I move in a week, and that'll be my home base spaceship for 1 year. So I know that I'll be there. I have the intention of buying land and building my multidimensional retreat center. So simultaneously, I'm doing that. I also have been, you know, I've had a lot of intentions and a lot of visions of what I want to do and where I'm going. And the universe has showed me a lot of different responses. So now when it comes up, I'm like, this is what's coming up. And you could talk to me next month and I could have had a whole new vision that's changed my entire direction, because that just seems to be what keeps happening every month. So I'm very fluid right now, and I'm really excited that I really have no idea, you know, like I've been connecting to the Akashic records in order to start learning more oversight into decision making. And that has really helped me kind of ground into the waves of new visions that universe is serving up. So I'm currently training on that.
Yeah, I get, like, I'm the same with, like, I have all these ideas and all these visions come in, and I write them all down, and I'm like, right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. But then sometimes they may not manifest for 3 or 4 months, because I'm like, I have to park that for now. And then, like you said, something else comes in, and you're like, when do you want me to do all this?
Yeah, because that's what the vision was. They were like, get out of California, go to Colorado, buy land, and build your retreat center. And I was like, okay. And so I was just totally focused on that for 6 months. And literally, they were like, that's actually not the time now. Find a house to rent. And I'm like, okay.
You've done half of it now.
I think, and you see the part when I'm like hindsighting, that could have been the apple that dragged me out of California. I don't have the full picture right now as to, is that going to unfold, or was that the motivating force that's pushing me into what's actually meant to unfold? I just don't know yet.
No. And I think definitely at the minute, in terms of being really fluid with everything that's going on, and just, you know, if something comes up, then, you know, allow it. And if it's meant to be out there, it will birth its way into the world, won't it, at the right time, when it's meant to be.
Basically.
Well, thank you so much, Scarlett, for coming and chatting with me about sort of like psilocybin and microdosing and everything else. It's been really, really lovely chatting with you. I really appreciate it. So I'll put all the links to your website and to the books. I highly recommend reading Psilocybin Transmissions, because, like you said, the words are so beautiful. And for me, whenever I read something that's not coming from, you know, like a place of ego or from a person's mind, and it's channeled, you can feel that in your heart. And that's how I felt when I read Psilocybin Transmissions. So I'll put all the links for everyone to come and find you in the comments. So thank you again, Scarlett.
Thank you. It was so nice to meet you and be here.
Thank you.